Okay, I believe that has started there. Apologize for momentary background noise, have some yard work going on, but good morning, everybody. My name is Zach Stone. I am the Senior Director of Data Analysis for Special Populations at the Tennessee Department of Education. This morning, we are going to be focused on the Early Childhood Annual Performance Report indicators. Those are indicators 6, 7, and 12 in that APR. So I just want to start by showing the three main priorities for Tennessee's strategic plan, Best for All. I know that we go over this frequently at every one of these webinars that we do, and that many of you are familiar with these already. So I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but I do want to frame the work that we do on the IDA data team. As you may know, our team manages the EdPlan/Easy IEP system, a tool that allows educators to work closely with student data with the ultimate goal of ensuring that students have access to high quality education no matter where they live, and also ensuring that all schools can be well equipped to serve the academic and non-academic needs of all students. We are also responsible for collecting, analyzing, and reporting annual performance report or APR data that provides districts with an understanding of how well they are implementing Part B of IDA, which in turn informs the work that they do within their districts and schools. So just wanted to start by making that connection of the work that we do on the IDA data team and the department's strategic plan. So first, I'm going to start with a quick overview of the APR local determinations process. So local determinations are required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that's IDA, which says that states must monitor the implementation of IDA in each LEA. So Tennessee monitors LEA implementation on 14 different indicators. There are two different types of indicators. There are compliance indicators, which have targets that are set at the federal government. This most often will be either 0%, meaning that there should not be any of that outcome, or 100%, meaning that the outcome should be met for every single student. Results indicators are targets that are set by the department by TDOE. So we have indicators that we select to use within the determination process, and then we set those targets based on stakeholder feedback and longitudinal data analysis. Within the determinations process, LEAs earn points for each indicator based on meeting the target and or demonstrating year-to-year improvement within that indicator. The total weighted points earned are divided by the total possible weighted points to generate a final score in the form of a percentage and make the overall determination for the district. So that is just a quick overview of what we do for the APR local determinations. So as I mentioned, today we are focused on early childhood. The three APR indicators that relate to early childhood are indicator 6, which focuses on preschool educational environment, indicator 7, which focuses on early childhood outcomes. And as you can see, there are three sub-indicators within that. And then indicator 12, which just focuses on children who are transitioning from Part C to Part B. And so for each of these indicators, I am going to provide a definition, where you can find the data source, and then also how to do the calculation for that specific indicator. And I'm going to show you some of those reports, and we're going to look at some numbers together, just so you can see exactly how that calculation is done. So first, we're going to start with indicator 6, which, as I mentioned, is preschool educational environment. So that includes students, children who are ages 3 through 5, not in kindergarten. So those 5-year-olds who are still in preschool and have not moved on to kindergarten yet. So the definition for this indicator for the calculation is the percent of students with disabilities attending a regular early childhood program and receiving the majority of special education and related services in that regular early childhood program, meaning general education. And we'll talk more about that in a second when I get into the actual calculation. The source for that is the final combined table 1 and 3 December 1st report. So that's also known as the December 1 census count or the child count file. The source for the local determinations is that report that is generated for each district and available in Easy IEP on December 1st. So then on to that calculation, using the numbers included in that report, you are looking at students with disabilities who are in environment category A1 or B1. So those are the two environment categories that are related to receiving services in the regular early childhood program, divided by the total number of students with disabilities ages 3 through 5 not in kindergarten. So in terms of calculation, what you'll need to do is you would download the final combined table 1 and 3 December 1st report details. That's the Excel version. That is what will be generated this year on December 1st. It will be an Excel file, which is a little different. You will still have the PDF file, but you'll also have the final Excel file generated. So you'd want to download that file for the applicable school year. You can also just simply request the report titled Combined Table 1 and 3 December 1st Report Details. That's the Excel version. If you are using the latter, that second report, you can run that at any time during the year. So that final, the one thing to remember is that final report, those are the counts that are going to be used for your APR local determination and that are also going to be submitted as part of the statewide report when we do our federal reporting, when we submit that statewide APR. However, you can run a version of this report at any time throughout the year if you do want to check on those counts and look at your environment categories throughout the year. And in fact, I would encourage you to do that. It is available to you at any time to pull down those counts. So in terms of calculation, so I'm going to read through this here, but then I'm actually going to show you an example table 1 and 3 report, and we're going to look at what those counts look like within the report and then how the percentage is generated. So the percent represents the sum of, as I mentioned, students with disabilities in environment categories A1 and B1. And so I have the specific column and rows there. So it would be column F, rows 129 and 131. And I'm just going to show you this in just a second, divided by the total number of students with disabilities age 3 to 5, not K, which is in column F, row 138. And so we're going to take a look at those counts. I'm going to switch the screen. And I also want to mention the second bullet here is referring to, I always recommend and prefer pulling the Excel version of the report. It's not as pretty as the PDF. However, if you are looking at these counts, it's easy to identify what column and row they're in. Also, if you see some discrepancies or counts that look off to you, you can scroll down in the report and you can see all of the children who are included in that report. So the Excel report has all the individual records included of those students, whereas the PDF just provides you the total counts. So for that reason, I think it's typically more helpful to pull that Excel version of the report. So I'm going to switch over to my example here quickly. Just bear with me. Okay, so this is an example of the table 1 and 3 report. As you can see, there are no, it's not actually popular. I removed all the numbers here, but this is what it would look like. So we are going to scroll down to those columns and rows that I referenced. So as I mentioned, we are looking at column F, row 129. That gives us the educational environment for A1. I'm just going to expand this a little bit here. So that is children attending a regular early childhood program at least 10 hours per week. And as you can see, B and I got to expand both of these here. Hold on. Just didn't want to. And receiving the majority of hours of special education and related services in the regular early childhood program, excuse me. So as you can see in column F, we have a total of 16 students who are in that A1 category. Then column F, row 131. So this is children attending a regular early childhood program less than 10 hours per week, but also receiving the majority of special education and related services in the regular early childhood program. So those are the two, A1 and B1. We can see the count there is 3. So I just made this little table here for demonstration purposes. So we have a total of 16 students in that A1 category. We're going to put that number in there. And then we have a total of 3 in that B1 category. That is 19 total.
All right, that's not.
So you can see that A1 and B1 in this column here in this table. And also I have it generating the percentage based on the total number of students who are ages 3 through 5 not in kindergarten. That's column F, row 138. So that is 26 students. So 19 divided by 26 is 73.08%. So that would represent your percent for 6A, indicator 6A. So now I'm going to switch back out of this and go back to our presentation here. Okay, so that is how, using the table 1 and 3 report, how you calculate 6A for your LEA. And again, you can pull that report at any time, pull down those counts at any time, and do that calculation to kind of keep track of where you are in terms of environment throughout the school year. But it is that December 1st report that's generated that will be used for the local determinations. So here is a quick view of the indicator 6A targets. So last year, the 2021 school year, those APR local determinations, the target was 32.39%, which was a bit lower than what it had been in the past. So you might notice here that there is sort of a larger increase in the first and second year, a slightly lower increase in the third year, and then a lower increase that kind of levels off over that. But it's the upcoming target for the next APR local determinations, meaning data from the 21-22 school year, will be 36.2%. Then it will increase another 2.54%. So in 22-23, that will be at 40%. And then, as I said, it levels off and it increases by 1.27% each year thereafter. And if you do want to view any of these targets for any of the APR indicators, they are available within the APR local determinations process guide, which is posted to the special education data services page. So I think Adam can drop a link in here to that. So that does have all the targets for the specific indicators. But just wanted to give you an idea for the 2021, or excuse me, the 2021-22 determination year, the target for 6A will be 36.20%. So I'll stop there to see if we have any questions. I forgot to mention that I was going to stop at the end of each section for questions, and I'll also stop at the end for questions. So if any folks, let's see if I do have any questions here. I don't see any questions, but I'll just pause for a few seconds here if anyone does have a question, and then we'll continue on. And like I said, we'll have some time at the end of the presentation to answer questions as well. So indicator 7, which is early childhood outcomes. We'll start by doing the overview. The definition of this indicator is the percent of preschool children aged 3 through 5 with IEPs who demonstrate improved outcomes in each type of outcome. I know that's kind of confusing, but as you had seen before, there is 7A, 7B, 7C. Each of them measure a different type of outcome. So we're looking at the percent of children who demonstrate improved outcomes within each of those outcomes. The source is entrance and exit data, exit scores, entrance and exit scores that are entered into the Early Childhood Outcomes tab in Easy IEP. So if you're working on a student record in Easy IEP, you go to the Early Childhood tab. You should also see a tab for Early Childhood Outcomes. Scores are entered there when a student enters a preschool program, and then when a student either exits that preschool program or turns age 6. And so that hits right on that calculation there. So we're using students from the report who either turned 6 and are still in preschool or exited early childhood services during the year in question. So for instance, if we're looking at for the upcoming determinations, which is the 2021-22 school year, we would be looking at students who exited a preschool program between July 1st, 2021 and June 30th, 2022. So in terms of how that's actually calculated, we are looking at children who improved functioning to a level nearer or comparable to same-aged peers, which are categories C or D, within each one of those outcomes. And again, I'll get into a little bit more of this on the next slide and show you some examples here. But basically, you are looking at children who improved functioning to a level near or comparable to same-aged peers during their time in preschool, divided by the total number of students, excluding those students who entered and maintained same-aged peer level functioning. So we're only looking, considering categories A, B, C, and D for the denominator of that calculation. So to further clarify that I know there's a lot of information on this page. So the main report that you would need to use to calculate indicator 7 for your LEA is called the ECHO or the ECO date report. And I know every time I mention this, I say that it is date report, it is not data report. So it's the ECO date report, ages 3 to 5, and that is on the state tab in the report section of Easy IEP. This particular report pulls on the early childhood entry date. So you really, when you're pulling it, you just want to make sure that you enter a date range that encompasses a period of time prior to the year that you're considering, because it is pulling on entry. Students enter at different times. Even though we're only going to be looking at students that exited during a specific year, we want to make sure that we capture all of those students who may have entered at different times. So I typically recommend pulling for the previous 5 reporting years. So for example, if you are looking for data, and that should say the 21-22 school year, excuse me, but apologize for that error there. If you're looking to retrieve data from the 21-22 school year, you would enter a from date of 7/1/2017 and a to date of 6/30/2022. And that's for that ECO date report. So once you download that report, you would want to make sure that you're only looking at those students that that exited or have exit scores during the reporting year. So you would want to filter that column to make sure that you're only including those students that have an exit date between 7/1/21 and 6/30/2022. And again, it depends on what reporting year that you're looking at. You then take that data and pull that out of the ECO date report and put it into a template that is provided by OSEP. They have a reporting calculator, and Adam just posted that the link to that in the chart. So you would pull the data from this report from EasyIEP, put it into this template, and this template, you do have to do a little bit of manipulating, but it does calculate those indicators 7A, 7B, and 7C for you. So I'm going to now move over to that. Just stop sharing for 1 second here. Let me make sure I have the right. Bear with me for just 1 moment here. Thank you. Okay, so this is, of course, an example of the ECO date report. A lot of the columns I just left blank, but you can see here that there's a total of 13 students who are included in this report. You will have access to their last name, first name, ID, the specific demographic information, school name, their status, whether they're active or inactive in the system, whether they have a compliance symbol attached to their name, which is that reminder to collect scores, disability information, if they have any TEIS exit outcome data, that would be included as well. So starting here in row S, this is where the important information lies. So column S includes the date of entry. That would be the date that the entrance scores are entered into that early childhood tab. So you can see here that we have a number of kids sort of entering at different times between 2018 and 2021. And then they have an entrance score 1, entrance score 2, and entrance score 3. So all of those scores are listed in columns T, U, and V. Then following that, if there are exit scores, the date that those exit scores are entered are available in that column W. There is also X calculates the length of time that they were receiving services. So this is simply a calculation of their date of when the entrance scores were entered until the date of when the exit scores were entered. Because one caveat to this is that we only consider students who have received at least 6 months of services in the calculation of that of those indicator 7 percentages. Indicator Y has that ECO exit score 1, and then a follow-up question that's attached to that, has the child made progress? So you can see here we have a number of scores listed, has the child made progress? So then there's an exit score 2, and these correspond with those entrance scores, right? So ECO exit 1, ECO exit 2, ECO exit 3, all also with this additional question of whether or not the child has made progress, because that is information that is used in the template. So now I'm going to switch to this. This is what the calculator that Adam linked to in the chat looks like. I have just pulled this information out of the report and entered it into the calculator here. Student ID numbers, just copying and pasting program, including the entry date, exit date. And again, I mentioned you have to do some manipulating because you do need to paste, I think maybe 3 or 4 of these columns at a time. It doesn't let you paste all of the information at once. So there is some pasting that you would have to do to get it into this template. But so you have the dates and the scores, and then you have the exit dates and those scores as well. The progress, again, it's another, when I talk about manipulation in the template, you just need to enter a Y or an N to represent yes or no. In the actual report, it says yes or no. So you would need to change that as you're entering it in there. But once you have all that data in there, it automatically calculates the OSEP outcome categories. And if you do want a definition of these outcome categories, this is also available in the APR Local Determinations Process Guide. If you go to Appendix B, there are a couple guidance documents that are available here. It shows you what the actual scores mean that are entered into that ECO date report. And then here are those actual categories. So when I say that it's calculating the OSEP outcome category, here are the definitions of these categories and what that means in terms of the score. So like, for example, C means that the student improved functioning to a level nearer to same-aged peers but did not reach it. And that means that they were rated higher at exit than entry, and they were rated 5 or below at exit. So anyway, this is a really good resource if you're seeking to better understand what exactly those scores mean when you have those outcome categories within the OSEP calculation template. Okay, so once we have those, it calculates those categories. You'll also see that there is a column over here, EE, that looks at service less than 6 months or missing an exit date. So that flags those students, and they are not included in the calculation that I'm going to show you on the other tab. But you can filter for those if you don't want to see them. So we had 13 students. Only 11 will be included in the calculation because there were 2 students that did not have 6 months between those entry and exit dates. So once you have all of this data input into the calculator, you can simply move to this OSEP category tables or totals tab here within the calculator. And it will show you the percentage of students within each of the progress categories within each of those outcomes, and then it will actually give you those percentages for 7A, B, and C. So outcome 1, 2, 3 correspond with 7A, B, and C. And again, these percentages represent of those children who entered the program below age expectations, the percent that substantially increased their rate of growth by the time that they exited. And this is summary statement 1. That's the only thing that we're looking at for APR local determinations. So let me go back to the presentation once again. Oops. Okay, so that one's a little more complicated. You're pulling multiple reports, entering into a template, but hopefully that's helpful, having that template and also having all of the contextual information available in the process guide. So early childhood outcomes targets, each sub-indicator or indicator 7 has 3 different outcomes. In each of those outcomes has its own target. So for the 21-22 determination year, that means data from the 2021-22 reporting year. The target for 7A, which focuses on social emotional skills, is 91.7% or more. The target for 7B, which focuses on knowledge and skills, is 89.98% or more. And then 7C is which focuses on appropriate behaviors, is 92.6% or more. As you can see here, our baselines have been historically quite high, which is why we don't see a lot of increases in the targets over time. So as you can see, like with 7C, for instance, that target remains at 92.60% until that last year within this current APR package, where it increases to 92.81%. But these targets stay fairly steady, with 7B sort of having the largest increase over the next 5 years. So I'm going to stop there before we go on to indicator 12, if anyone has any questions about indicator 7. Okay, again, I will pause at the end too if any folks have any questions then. So we're going to move on to indicator 12, which is the part C to B transition. So the definition, this is the percent of children referred by Part C, so that would be the Tennessee Early Intervention Services, TEIS, prior to age 3, who are found eligible for Part B and to have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthdays. So that's the important thing to remember. It is not eligible. It's not Part B eligibility. It is Part B having an IEP in place by their 3rd birthday. The source for these data are we look at students turning 3 between July 1st and June 30th of the applicable reporting year. Those data are pulled from the Tennessee Early Intervention Services data system, TEADS, on September 1st, and then they're merged with EdPlan, Easy IEP, exit, and eligibility data to look at basically what happens to those students once they transition from Part C to Part B. So we use the data available in Easy IEP, merge that into the data that we receive from TIS, and basically to look at whether or not students have if they moved, if they have a non-eligibility determination, if they have an IEP in place. So I do want to emphasize that is why it is important to make sure that all of your information is documented and up to date in Easy IEP. In particular, if you have an eligibility determination, or if you have made parent contacts and we're not able to reach a parent, you just want to make sure that all that information is documented and up to date in the system, because we pull that data from the system, merge it into the TEADS data, and then make preliminary identification of students who may have been out of compliance. So in terms of the calculation, again, we're using students we're looking at those students who've been served in Part C and referred to Part B for Part B eligibility determination. Within that, we're looking at the number of those found eligible who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday. So that's in Part B. So number of those found eligible in Part B who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday, divided by the total number of children referred from Part C to Part B, excluding those students who were determined not eligible by their 3rd birthday. So if you had any non-eligibility determinations before the 3rd birthday, or their parent refused evaluation or services, or those who were determined eligible under Part C less than 90 days before their 3rd birthday. So those are what are referred to as late referrals. So those students who are referred to Part C less than 90 days before their 3rd birthday. So essentially, after these exclusions, you're really just looking at the number of those timely IEPs. So those students on IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday, out of the total number of students who had both timely or untimely IEPs. So I'm going to kind of go through this. These are the exact categories that we're looking at for indicator 12. So our recommendation is to keep a spreadsheet of all those children that are referred from TIS and who are turning 3 between July 1st and June 30th of the applicable school year. So those are, you would be notified in your district of those students. Those students' records would be imported into Easy IEP. But it is good to keep track of all those students who are referred and what category they might be what category they would fall into, as that's necessary to calculate indicator 12. So just a quick view. I know I'd mentioned these categories before, but what we consider, this is, I guess, integral to how you'd be looking at the calculation. Category A is the number of those children who have been served in Part C and referred to Part B for Part B eligibility determination. So that's basically all of your students or children who are transitioning from TIS to Part B in your district. Category B is the number of those referred determined to be not eligible and whose eligibility was determined prior to the 3rd birthday. C are those timely students, number of those found eligible and who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday. Category D is the number of children for whom parent refusal to provide consent caused delays in evaluation or initial services, or to whom exceptions under 34 CFR 300.301D applied. So that, to summarize that, that's what would be commonly called the parent refusal or parent reason. So there are lots of different situations or a few situations that fall within this category. A family may move out of state. A parent may not respond to multiple inquiries by the district. The parent may refuse to provide consent for evaluation or services, or a parent failed to produce the child for an evaluation to determine eligibility. So there are a number of different situations that fall into that category D, and I'll talk more about that in just 1 minute. And also category E, these are the late referrals, those that were referred to Part C less than 90 days before their 3rd birthdays. So the percent compliant, again, is looking at that category C, the timely IEPs, divided by A, which is the total referred, minus those non-eligibilities, minus those parent reasons, minus those late referrals. So I'm just going to show you this visually. Just 1 moment here on this little table that I created, just so you have an idea of, I guess, what that looks like in practice. And again, it's really up to the district in terms of record keeping. If you do want to track these students, again, we recommend putting them in a spreadsheet, and then and just making sure that you have the outcome documented in that spreadsheet, so you would have an idea of what category they would fit into. Okay, so here is this calculation spreadsheet that I created. So again, these are all the categories. So category A here is in column A, category B in column B, and so on. So again, the calculation is really, you're looking at all of the students that had an IEP developed and implemented by the 3rd birthday. In this case, we know that we had 62 of those students. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right in here for the total in category C. And then again, we're looking at that total referred from Part C to B minus the non-eligibilities, minus the parent reason, minus the late referral. So we had 131 total, minus 23, minus 33, minus 10. So that comes out to 65. And so you can see for this example district, it would be 95.38% compliance. So that's how we calculate the percentage. And again, this is a compliance indicator where the expectation is 100%. So basically, if you have any students who are determined to be untimely, and that would knock you below 100%, and you would need to correct those instances of non-compliance. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. Just one more slide I want to share about indicator 12. So again, as I mentioned, the target will always be 100%. This is a compliance indicator, and districts will be required to correct those instances of non-compliance. At the end of September, you should have received a list of children who did not have an IEP developed and implemented by the third birthday. So this was the preliminary identification of students who may be timely. I just want to, or untimely, excuse me. I just want to make that clear. This was a preliminary identification. We use this process, this is a slightly different process, but more or less the same in terms of we use the month of October to gather information about these students. That is what we're doing right now with districts. That you should have received a list. If you did have any students who may have been untimely, you should have received a list with their names and ID numbers. And we're using the non-compliance form to gather additional information and context about those children so that we can make final determinations around compliance, whether they were in compliance, meaning they had a timely IEP, or they were non-compliant and had an untimely IEP. And so, again, we are working with districts now to gather that information so we can make those final determinations that will be used as part of the APR local determinations. So anyway, that is how we calculate the percentage for indicator 12. And that, I'll pause for a minute for questions, but as always, here's our contact information. Again, my name is Zach Stone. I'm the Senior Director of Data Analysis for Special Populations. Adam Rollins, who is also on the call, is the IDA Data Manager, and many of you know Sharon Ordway, who's the Easy IEP Help Desk Coordinator. I have her email address there, but the easiest way to get in contact with her is on the Easy IEP message board by submitting a message there. Before I take questions too, I'll just throw up this slide. If you do have a moment, please take some time to fill out the very, very short feedback survey. It's helpful to us. We incorporate your feedback and like to hear from you when we do these presentations in the future. So that concludes the presentation, but I will take if anyone has questions now. And Adam also dropped a couple other documents in the chat. The first is a indicator 12 frequently asked questions document that was prepared by the APR IDA support team. This is a great resource if you have any questions about the process itself in terms of the Part C to Part B transition. Just lots of extremely helpful information that if you have any questions beyond just the calculation in terms of what that process should look like in district and what steps you should be taking to facilitate that Part C to B transition. Also, the form stack link is also posted there. So the PowerPoints have been posted. We had a question about putting the PowerPoint in the chat or emailing it out. The PowerPoints are available on that. Let me bring this up here. I'll put it in the chat here. So usually shortly after the these webinars, if you go to the following website, so it's not posted there yet, but it's usually within a week or two. Under the APR resources tab, you will see both the webinar slides and the webinar recording for each of these APR data webinars that we have done since starting in August. So that's where these presentations and the accompanying recording will be stored. So I would encourage you to check that page frequently, and that's where that information will be. So I'm going to stop the recording, but